There's no chance this is the case, but you're not related to Jonathan Penner, are you?
No.
Okay. He's
At
a
least
guy who was on Survivor once. I don't even know. I've seen him on TV,
really?
but
I'll have
like
to look
I
this
liked
up.
him on Survivor. So I was like, I just got to shoot this shot in the 0.1% chance there's somehow a relation. I would have a lot of questions.
That would be pretty wild. No.
So, welcome back to the Top Shelf Outbound Leadership Podcast. Today we have a very exciting guest, Katie Penner. No relation to Jonathan Penner from Survivor. I just confirmed for anyone wondering. Katie is currently the VP of Sales Development at Influ2, where she has been for around the last year, after leading sales development and strategy at Sendoso for the previous 5 years. So very excited to be chatting with Katie today about how to properly incentivize your team with really effective spiffs. Something everyone has tried, everyone has failed, everyone has had hopefully some success as well. And we'll be getting into the best practices for that. So Katie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
And now I jump in with the most exciting part of the interview. What are we drinking today, Katie?
Yeah, I'm excited. So today we're going to be drinking Sauvignon Blanc with 3 jalapeno slices. Now, I did tell you a very specific brand of Sauvignon Blanc, which is Matanzas Creek Winery. However, I want to be completely transparent in that I Googled good bottle of Sauvignon Blanc because this is my drink that I will drink at happy hours and things like that. I am typically drinking the house Sauvignon Blanc, and I always get really weird looks when I ask for 3 jalapenos in said glass of wine. But I will say it makes for a very fantastic conversation starter at, a work event. So take that for what it's worth.
I love that story, and I have something to follow it up. But first, I'm going to say cheers.
Cheers.
And excited for this. Perfect. I love the spice. So when you said it, and we were talking about this a second ago, very specific, which I appreciated. And also, this is now the second time I've done this. Joey, I don't know if you remember this at my wedding. Our pre-drink was rosé with jalapeno slices in it because my wife's aunt loves like jalapeno in her rosé. So when you said this too, I was like, there's a little bit of like familiarity, and I'm really excited about it. So
That's so cool. I'm excited to try it with rosé. I've only gone Sauvignon Blanc, so now I've been inspired.
I like Sauv Blanc more than rosé, so this is delicious.
Yeah, it's nice. And I feel like the longer the jalapenos sit in it, the more flavor you get. But really, I think it's more of like an aromatic experience, which
yeah.
So
I also love the part of the bartenders giving you a weird look, because for my 21st birthday, I went to Vegas with my parents, which was a blast. They also both listen, so hello. And when I was ordering my first legal drink, my parents were like, so what do you want to get? I was like, I don't know. Like, can I get like a gin and tonic with olives? I feel like that's weird, but that sounds good. And I remember my dad being like, whatever you want to drink, they will make for you. And they did. And I got rid of that shame quickly. Whatever you want to drink, you order it and they will make it for you and hopefully not give you a weird look.
Yeah, and then you get a little snack on the side. Who doesn't love a little snack?
Exactly.
Oh yeah. Are we gonna eat these jalapenos?
I don't know. It depends on how brave you are. I typically get brave enough for that around my 3rd glass. But
okay. We'll if this podcast runs long, we can have an intermission refill. So yeah. I'm excited though. And again, Katie, thanks for joining us. Like Joey said, right, Spiffs, very interesting topic, and a lot of different, I think, thoughts around Spiffs from different sales dev leaders. I have ones that I'll share later. But the first question that came to mind when we were talking through this was, as Joey also mentioned, you're at Sendoso for quite some time. So obviously you've seen the good, the bad, the ugly when it comes to like gifting.
Mm-hmm.
And also probably a lot of times where things were wasted budget, which is like the worst when it comes to like a spiff as well. So what are some things maybe that you've learned about gifting and incentives and how it has shaped your perspective on spiffs for your team?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, obviously, when I was at Sendoso, it was quite a bit easier to run Spiffs, right? Because I could do it at the click of a button. One of the kind of overarching things that I learned about gifting in any business relationship is that a personalized gift is always going to outperform an expensive generic one. And I think a lot of that is kind of pooled into my spiffs today, right? I think one of the core, kind of principles around an effective spiff program. Sorry, I just knocked something off my desk. Is going to be knowing your people and knowing what drives them and what matters to them, what motivates them, what their why is, and then building around that. So I would say that that's probably the biggest thing that has come across. I also think that people are more motivated by physical items, tangible items, than money in a lot of cases. And obviously when you're running a team spiff, money is going to come into the fold at some points. We're all here to work and make a living, but don't underestimate the physical items and how much those will drive your team as well.
I love that. And we were just talking about that before, about like kind of how the things we remember are the things that were like more personalized and not just cash. I think a problem I have run into with that is I've had many times, and maybe this is me approaching it wrong, and hopefully that is what you'll say. But I've run into many situations where I want to do something like that, but so what I will tell the team before is, hey, whoever wins this competition, or whoever does the most dials this month, whatever it is, will get a special gift, right? Like, not being able to say what it is because I want to personalize it or tailor it to who wins, and that tends to not be very, very motivating. So how do
Yes.
you approach like the communication before?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's interesting because I'm also running into kind of a version of that, right? Where you need to be specific so that people get a specific item or incentive in their mind so that they know what they're working towards, right? And that can be really difficult for me in my current role because I have a team that spans Ukraine, Poland, Canada, the Czech Republic, and the US, right? So what I can send to the US is a hell of a lot harder to send across the world and to, a war zone in Ukraine, right? There's a lot of restrictions there. So I have found creative ways to kind of flip the script on this. So we have been doing a lot of team spiffs, for example, where it's team versus team versus team, etc. It's like, a themed experience. And the winning team gets a virtual experience, right? Where we'll hire someone to come on and, do a magic show, or we'll do, a virtual scavenger hunt, whatever it is, right? And so they get that hour break from work where we get to just have fun on a Zoom chat. Or, and this is one of the more recent ones that we've done, I did mention that we have a team in Ukraine, right? It's an active war zone. And everyone else, including myself, that is outside of Ukraine on the team feels helpless. We want to help, but what do you do in that situation to make life a little better or show your teammates that you care for them? And so a few months ago, we saw a post from Matt Green. Matt's brilliant and he's such a great guy. He posted about how he was joining this charity called Convoy for Ukraine, and he's raising money so that he can drive medical supplies into Ukraine. And I'm like, that's amazing. How can I get involved in that? But then bigger picture, how can we take that and actually make that into a spiff where we are raising money through the right behaviors for this to support it? And so we did. We ran a spiff, and it was all around the right behaviors. If you were exceeding KPIs, daily, you donated a certain dollar amount, etc. We ended up donating $2,000 to that over the course of just a couple days, and it was really cool to see everyone rallying around it because it came from this deeper place of like, we want to support our teammates. So I think sometimes the answer, this is a very long way of answering your question, but sometimes these more creative and like out of the box incentives are the way to go there, where you're really pulling on someone's why or a collective why.
That's awesome. So yeah, obviously that one is hard to recreate, but the more recreatable part of it is like just looking for a pattern or just like a moment with your team, even
Yeah.
like an inside joke with your team, like something that relates to what everyone's talking about or caring about kind of at that moment.
Right.
And
Well, and I think too, sorry to interrupt you, but I think also like virtual experience vouchers are also really cool. So, I've done in the past where, someone will get a $500 virtual experience voucher for winning the spiff. And we say that, but then, Joey, if I knew that you love to surf or wanted to learn to surf, right? I could say, Joey, you could use this for X, Y, and Z. Matt, go off and take your wife out on a date, right? Whatever your why is, and kind of just call out specific things that each person could do with said voucher to personalize it for them. I think that's a way of also getting around that situation, and something we did a lot at Sendoso.
yep, it's like clarity up front about the value of what they can expect, so they're not just probably the worst thing I've sent is a pair of Crocs that match the color of our company, and I think that really ruined my trust from the team from
So
that point.
sick. So sick.
Crocs,
Chili pepper?
you could find the right person to get motivated by Crocs, I think.
I won't say where it was or what color they were or who got them, but
They
I
were
guarantee
orange.
you they don't still have them. They were orange. All right. So another thing we were talking about. So I feel like there's a fine balance with spiffs, like for what actions or outcomes you want to spiff on. For example, like if you spiff on just activity or dials alone, it can incentivize the wrong behavior, or someone can just tear through dials to get to the top of the leaderboard. But then on the other end, if you incentivize strictly on results, that's kind of just already what their comp plan is for.
Right.
So how do you find the middle ground of what to spiff on? And like where in the funnel do you like to incentivize?
Yeah, gosh, this is a great question. So I agree with you, right? You can't just go vanity metrics, and you definitely can't go meetings booked, sell, or your top performers are always going to win, and then who cares about them at the end of the day, right? So typically I like to align my quarterly spiffs with some sort of product launch, or if we have new messaging that we need to implement, right? And tracking whether or not they are successfully implementing those things and correctly doing the talk tracks. So one of the things that we do, for example, and one of the things that we're going to start tracking with our spiffs is we have a dialing tool. Said dialing tool has a bot, an AI bot, where you can go in and practice at any point. It scores you, right? So as we release new products and new capabilities, they are going to essentially get a score, and then the top performer of that cold call challenge is going to get points, right? So it's things like that that are relating back to something a bit more broad of, how are you positioning our product successfully, even as we are iterating it. We also like to look at like personalized emails and relevance in their manual emails. So them sending us any manual email that they've written, they've done deep research on, they've connected the signals and the ad engagements to this person's role, this person in general, they'll share that with us, and we reward that behavior, right? And of course we're usually tracking many things that all generate points. So of course we're still tracking meeting set and SAL conversions as well, and awarding points for those. But it creates this balance where, if someone is struggling with meeting bookings, they can still go and form these correct behaviors and earn points that way.
I love that. I think that's a unique way of looking at it. So is this, when you run spiffs, is this like how you are always running them, is like a point system that has like behaviors and success metrics, and it's kind of like a full
Yeah, yeah. I
Uh,
mean, I think usually, there's several factors that are all contributing. And 99% of the time, my spiffs are going to be either ticket or point based, where, I have a Google Sheet. We're constantly staying on top of all of these things. We have a dedicated Slack channel where they can send screenshots, so we're keeping count. But yeah, I don't like to spiff on one metric because I think that's pretty narrow minded, right? Because again, going back to what Joey said, if you are only incentivizing for cold call volume, then you're going to get people gaming the system. If you're only incentivizing for SALs or meeting set, whatever, then your top performers are going to win all the time. But when you're able to create this healthy mix of the right behavior, not only is it more likely to stick because they've been doing it for, the duration of your spiff, but also you're able to hammer in these new talk tracks in a fun and effective way as well.
yeah, I think that's brilliant. I think that's something that I personally maybe have done one time from a like actual like scoring system. I'd be curious to see looking back at it if that was like the most successful of my spiffs. But um, cool. The thing that we said a few like conversations ago that Joey also and I were talking about earlier today was the like personalization of a spiff. And again, coming from like Sendoso,
Mm,
I am 1,000% on that mindset of where like, and I've seen it as a recipient of gifts too. Like if you say, hey, here's a $500 gift card, that isn't as meaningful as if you there's like a $50 gift that is personalized to me. Like
right.
if you take this meeting and here's a, like you said, something that is it's for your dog and it's a $25 gift. That is so much more meaningful than $1,000 gift card. It's just like that, doesn't do the trick. And the spiff that is the most like I'll remember it forever. And I tell people about it was my first company I was at as like a SDR AE. I won like a quarterly thing and it was seats behind a hockey match, like right behind the net. And
Yeah.
you got to bring somebody and it was a top two. So it was like four of us, but it was two people who worked there, two of our friends. And I'll always remember that when I was literally telling my brother-in-law this story like 2 nights ago. If I would have gotten the cash value of that, it wouldn't have been as impactful because it would have just been like part of the paycheck and it's like a commission thing. And so it's like something that I think is really hard to do is to create that very personal experience. And so when you're thinking of like the main differentiators between the spiff that they like will forget about and the ones that motivate them like daily, like what do you think those main differentiators are?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like you said, the personalization, right? How do you position it, even if it's an experience voucher, right? Or something kind of more generic? How in one-on-ones do you cement that relevance to them or that personalization, right? And so knowing your people, and again, what motivates them, I think is step one, so that you can form that connection in their mind of, hey, if I win, I get to go experience X, which is really important to me. Right. So, like, that is number one. I think also the second thing is like, you need to be able to show the correlation between these efforts and how they're performing. Right. Because if you have set this up correctly and they are doing more of the right things as a result, then you should also be seeing more meetings set, more conversations happening. And I think it's very important throughout the spiff to update them on that throughout the team meeting so that they know, oh, this isn't just like something my boss is making me do. This is actually putting more money in my pocket as well. Like, I should keep up with this. This is worth my time. Right. And then finally, I think the theater and the production of a spiff matter. So a lot of times what I see is STR leaders will throw spiffs out kind of retroactively if their team is not performing well. And they're like, oh, snap, we're not pacing well. We need to get more meetings. I'm going to throw out $100 for, the next 5 people that book a meeting, whatever, right? Like, it is just such a toss out that it's not thoughtfully executed to actually, incentivize the right behaviors that lead us to that choice. So I think, the theatrics and the planning and the thought is actually very, very important to a spiff. I will give you an example of this and what I mean. So when I was at Sendoso, December was notoriously a very rough month for us. I think that most teams would agree, right? You have a bunch of prospects out on vacation, it's holiday time. Like, it is just hard to squeeze in meetings during that time. And so I knew that I wanted to run a month-long spiff for December, keep people motivated, because also you don't really want to work in December. Like, everyone's on vacation and you're like dragging, it's difficult. You're getting more no's than normal. So I knew we wanted to do that. I created this month-long spiff where all of these good behaviors, right? Going over your KPIs, having a good conversation, writing a relevant email with a personalized gift, and sharing that with us would all earn them tickets. So they would bank tickets every week, and then they could also spend tickets if they wanted to. And when they spent tickets, I think it was like 5 tickets, our CEO, Chris, would message a prospect on their behalf and things like that, right? So they would have to invest tickets to get that help from the CEO. And they learned that usually asking for that help paid off. And they were able to earn more with meetings booked, SALs, etc. Then at the end of every week in the month of December, we had a raffle where people were winning things like Yeti coolers, Uni pizza ovens, and they knew exactly what was going to be raffled off each week. So they knew, hey, I want to invest this money, or I want to hold off till the last week. That gift is really cool. Right. And so I think that the options there and the flexibility also let them kind of personalize the experience to themselves. So they had the highest chance of, winning the gift that was most interesting to them. But we ran that and it was awesome. And we actually had the best December we'd ever had statistically because of that incentive. And it was fun. And, we had Chris on calls in a Santa outfit, promoting it and keeping it going. We would do holiday themed, stuff throughout. And it was theatrical. It was fun. It was this whole production, and it made you really excited to see what was next on the meeting and what goofy shit your bosses were going to do that day, and it gave you something to look forward to. And I think that's also a really big part of getting your team to buy into it is being kind of lame and making it a thing and making it fun.
That's like the craziest spiff. It's like you're running a whole mall.
It was so fun.
So fun. It's like just its own the SDR economy.
Yeah, this is incredible. And all I'm thinking about is like how fun it would have been to work for you and to do these types of spiffs. And then I go work for Joe and he sends me Crocs that are orange. Like
it makes a huge difference.
It's a huge difference. Thank you for diving into that, because also I'm now like just rethinking so many of the spiffs that I've been a part of or I've ever done, because I think you have clearly figured it out. And when we talk about superpowers that people have doing it, I think this is exactly what we're always like hoping for. Is like, sounds like you are the person that should tell everyone how to do spiffs.
Yeah, like it's not this. Yeah, talking about how to get away from just giving people more money. This is like creating a new currency that you also pay people in.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's fun. And I mean, Joey, to give you some credit,
No.
Not needed.
Oh, yeah, I have something to share with you.
When I first started at Implu2, none of my team had swag, because swag distribution across all of these countries is very difficult to do. And I learned that very quickly. But the first spiff that I ran was just a team spiff, right? I set a stretch goal, and if they beat it, I would send them all branded Stanley cups, right? Those massive cups. And, here in the USA, we're kind of the only people that walk around with these massive cups. In other countries, that's not normal. Neither is, ice and water, for example. And I wasn't really sure how a big ass Stanley Cup was going to land with this international team. But it's so funny today because, we'll be on calls and it'll just be chugging water out of their big cups. And it's really fun to see. So, and I still have some orange shoes from my Sendoso days. So, credit to you. I would have kept the orange.
I feel like we at Chili Piper, I feel like we threw a lot of events with Sendoso, and we were all there with our own orange shoes from our own companies. All right, last spiff related question, unless you continue to just inspire more and more follow-ups from us. Who in your career did you learn the most from as far as like effective spiffs and getting to this point? And what did you learn from them?
Oh man, this is a great question. I would say there were two main people that I guess inspired the out of the box thinking, I would say, when it comes to the way that I format my spiffs. And um, that would probably be Sarah Lowry and Chris and Braden. So three people really. The two co-founders of Sendoso and Sarah Lowry. Sarah Lowry was, in our HR team, and Sarah was just crazy, like in the best way possible. We, for example, would have a team meeting around Thanksgiving, and she would do drawings and send people like full turkeys and like crates of green beans and just like the most outlandish stuff. And it was always so crazy. And people really got like, pallets of green beans, which was wild. And it was just interesting because as crazy as it was, people really looked forward to it. And who was going to have to deal with a pallet of green beans, for example? And it was just always hilarious. And it was like, it built this camaraderie on our team and this inside joke where immediately everyone felt like, they were in on it, and I think that there was something really beautiful about that. Now, I don't plan on sending anyone a pallet of green beans anytime soon, but I do think that creativity and, it really did open my eyes to like how making this fun and getting creative could bring people together. So I would say that is probably a huge part of the inspiration, but I do feel like I reined it back a little bit.
I love that you just said the last sentence of like how fun it could be, because I've always been a huge believer in making this role, this function, like somewhat fun, because of the fact that like, yes, it's work. And like, all of us around here have done things where your team is bringing in millions in pipeline and the revenue is there. There's real numbers that are behind it. But like this role is so tough. It's so like consistently like exhausting, and you're getting people who are just breaking into maybe the tech world or they're starting their career. And if it's not fun, like this job sucks. Like truthfully, if you're not having a little bit of fun, like it's not a really enjoyable job. And so I think that the good leaders out there do really balance you're doing something serious and it's very professional and again, there's impactful results there, but you can still make it fun and you can make it something that people are like excited to do. I think you've done a really good job at that. So I love that you've shared some of these like very actionable things that hopefully people will copy you. And again, maybe not a crate of green beans. That one is pretty wild, but there's a lot of other good ideas that you've shared. So I appreciate that. The last question that we have, Katie, and by the way, I also did eat one of the jalapenos like a second ago.
Oh, brave.
And I think after this, I might have another glass and refresh it with another 3 jalapenos, because I'll probably eat the other 2 in here. We ask this to every guest. Outside of work, what is one thing that you want to accomplish in your lifetime?
That I made it moment. I know that that's kind of generic. What a generic answer. But we talked about how, I'm considering a big move. And, I think I've constantly over the past few years just been climbing this ladder. Now I feel content where I am and, kind of what I'm doing. And I feel like I have a pretty long project in this current role across all these different countries. And, so now it is kind of my goal to reach that moment where, whether it's me living in Costa Rica and my kids going to international schools, but I want to feel like I have set out what I wanted to do professionally. And I feel like I'm on the cusp of that. And so I'm really, really excited about that. And I feel like it's closer than I think. But that's a big one. I would probably have to stick with that. It's top of mind for me,
It's lovely. It's a beautiful answer. I think you are on the cusp of it, and I appreciate you being on here. I don't know if Joey has some things, but I'm going to say cheers to that, and then I'm going to finish these 2 jalapenos.
You're so brave. Mine are very seedy. I'm scared.
Cheers. Thank you very much. This was awesome. And thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time.